Well, the EP Kings continue to be in the news with reports of bad administration that has led to players not being paid. The players were led by Kevin Laters and Ronnie Cook and expressed concerns in their petition over the arrangement that has seen SA Rugby taking over the affairs of the franchise ahead of next year's Super Rugby season.
The way things are unfolding, more EP Kings rugby players could opt to take the embattled union to court following the non-payment of salaries. The union has been doing well administratively of late, as the senior side has qualified for the Currie Cup and the under-19s on the other hand have won their age group competition. The franchise has been granted Super Rugby status for the next year's competition. The problem though has been a financial one, and Eastern Cape Province Rugby Administrator Dan Keke believes that Cheeky Watson's relationship with corporate South Africa could be the heart of the problem.
The corporate world is not supporting EP enough. Maybe because they are holding a grudge against Cheeky Watson. Because Cheeky Watson was playing for Eastern Province Whiteside in the 70s, and he was invited to go to the trials, Springbok trials in Pretoria. And then from there, he ditched the South African Rugby Board and he joined the non-racial vote. And the whole of South Africa was up in arms against him, and they didn't like him. Maybe they are still holding that grudge against him. I don't know.
It is believed that the South African Rugby Union has identified around 22 Southern King players who will be offered contracts, while the remaining players in the King squad will have to be contracted by the EPRU. It's a reality that is sending shivers down their spine. Keke believes that local business needs to come to the party if this financial crisis is to be resolved.
The private sector here doesn't come to the party. They don't sponsor rugby in these provinces they are doing in other provinces. If I were to mention one example, for example, Volkswagen is something like 20 kilometers away from me, but they are sponsoring Moroka Swallows in Johannesburg and no EP. So this is the problem.
With all the boardroom battles taking place, inevitably is the players that ultimately bear the brunt and end up as casualties of ongoing power struggles. ANN7 Sports Desk.
Well, we have a very interesting discussion planned for you. Let me introduce you to all the parties that will be taking place in this discussion. In studio, rugby analyst and reporter Chumani Bambani is joining us. Thank you for speaking to us. On the line from Cape Town via the backpack in Cape Town is Mr. Tony Mckeever, who used to be part of the Southern Spears. We also have a little bit earlier spoken to one of the rugby players, that's Ronnie Cook. And we have an anonymous player on the line who chooses not to be named, but it will be certainly interesting to see what he has to start with that discussion. Maybe let's start with him. I think he'll give us a good basis on what is happening in the Eastern Cape. I'm going to refer to you as Anonymous. Anonymous, thank you for speaking to us here on Game On ANN7. Maybe just give us an idea of what are some of the issues the players are going through at the moment.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Just back to refer to your question. I think it's quite a sensitive topic. Sensitive period at the point in time, that all professional players would never have been to find themselves in. And at this point in time, 2 months without salary, it is quite a big loss. Not quite a big loss, but a massive loss to each family home in Homestead, and everyone as an individual with their families are suffering as a result of the ongoing power struggles and the short and the financial situations that the Eastern Province Rugby Union find themselves in. And we're speaking about emotionally, physically, the morale is low amongst the boys, and especially those that weren't off the contract. So, it's just all in all, it is a bit of a tough situation, and we're just trying to uplift the morale amongst the boys.
I heard that some of them have lost their homes because they were unable to pay their rent. Some of their cars have been repossessed. I mean, that's a shocking, shocking story in an era where we're supposed to be professional sportsmen.
That is probably the case, and that's like I said, not in 50, 40 years of playing professional sport have ever possibly heard of something like this, but these things are thrown across your path, and so of course you just really need to adjust and adapt, and that's why we try and stand united as best as possible with every single individual, and we try and cater to their needs. I myself have as well catered to a few players' needs, or try to best as possible, do the little that I possibly can. Not much from from our administration has been done for us. So we really just got to be there for one another.
The Players Union or the Players Association, have they tried to assist you at all?
Yes, I have offered food vouchers of R1,000, sponsored by Pick and Pay, that's correct, and a short petrol allowance, you know. But I mean, we're speaking of 2 months' salary and 2 months back pay. Who really can live off R1,000? And especially petrol, if you're traveling up and down to Germany, you know, you need to be able to do the things that you've always done. So I think it's a massive adaptability, and this basically takes me back to thinking if this will really be your last salary in rugby. And I can understand why rugby players post-rugby, once retirement, go through the stresses that they actually go through, because it's massive. It's really massive.
Anonymous, thank you very much for speaking to us, and we certainly wish that your situation will get better. Thank you very much. Chumani, I've got goosebumps. That's very, very chilling indeed, very sad indeed. I mean, this is 2015. Why should players be experiencing this?
Absolutely chilling. You know, I'm reminded of my time growing up in a village in the Eastern Cape where we played rugby and the winners walked away with a loaf of bread and a carton of milk.
Wow.
You know, I mean, in 2015, a professional team that's supposed to be playing Super Rugby next season, having them being given food voucher by a player, by the Player Association, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, yes, we understand that there could be financial issues, but for it to get to this point, I mean, obviously, the warning signs should have been there a long time ago. And I don't think the problems only started now when the players started not getting paid. I mean, this has been ongoing for a very long time, but a lot of people have kept quiet, turned a blind eye to it, and now we've reached this point. And I mean, we should not be here. And I mean, heads need to roll, definitely.
Absolutely. You talk about that this hasn't started for now. I want to bring in Tony Mckeever. Tony, thank you very much for speaking to us here on Game On ANN7. I know you've been on the show a few times, but it's a pleasure to chat to you. Just to pick up from what Chumani said, this is certainly not something new. I'm sure after you left, it's been a long time coming. Did you see this happening?
Yes, Mckeever. Certainly this isn't suddenly an event. It's a process that has unfolded over the past 8 months. And what you're witnessing now, or what South Africa is witnessing now, is a rogue group of people who are violating SARU's constitution. And if I can be a little technical, under Clause 10 of the SARU constitution, there are only 14 unions. What this rogue group of people are doing are advocating a 15th union. Under Clause 27.7, SARU's obligation is to do an intervention if there's maladministration and financial mismanagement. There are 2 individuals within EP Rugby Union and the Southern Kings, which is the president and the CEO, who have perpetuated this maladministration and financial mismanagement. So SARU are obligated, and as part of the Constitution, that all 14 unions have subscribed to, that if there is a situation in which there's maladministration and financial mismanagement, such as it has unfolded within EP Rugby Union and PTY Limited, they can do an intervention. What they're doing now is doing open heart surgery, ripping out the heart, which is the assets of all of these 30 players who have stood together with solidarity, and they're doing open heart surgery without any anesthetic, and they're just tossing the body away. You can't do that. So what SARU and SAPA and this new makeup company, which quite frankly is a sports travel agency that is now contracting players, it has no assets. You cannot close one door and then open another and walk across the road, which is what Charles Kraus has tried to do. In fact, he's done this. It is, in law, administratively incorrect. In terms of labor relations and law, it is incorrect and unlawful. And in terms of constitutionally, lawfully illegal as well. So they're violating not only the SARU constitution, they're also violating administrative, labor, and constitutional law. It is outrageous, and this should never have happened. And SARU, at their President's Council tomorrow, need to do an intervention. and they need to abide by their constitution and not make up rules as they go along and wave paper underneath the faces of these players who they're to be commended because they've stood together, and do an intervention. This thing can be sorted out. These people who are at the front line of trying to put together this company, and it's a bogus company, to try and put together this company is a sham, and they're perpetuating a fraud. And they are bringing the game of rugby into disrepute, and they're going to tear the game of rugby in this country apart. So the opportunity or the watershed moment is tomorrow at the President's Council and Exco meeting in Cape Town.
Just to interrupt you there, if I'm correct, you had a meeting with some of the players today. Maybe just take us through what was discussed and some of the issues that came out from that meeting.
That meeting actually was last night, and it was a show of solidarity. Players were presented with contracts by SAPA, which are bogus, quite frankly, because how can a travel agency contract professional rugby players who are already under contract with EP Rugby Pty Limited? None of these players have been released. There's a process and a protocol that even runs on the SARU website in terms of player release forms and collective player agreement and collective bargaining agreements. These people are violating every single one of SARU's protocols and processes. You can't do that. So last night, the players came together and they said, what should they do? I said, well, it's all for one, one for all. You guys have to stand together. This bogus company, this travel agency, cannot handpick certain players and discard the other players. That is a total violation of the Labour Relations Act. If you're going to hijack a company, you hijack all employees. And that goes for all of the players that are professionally contracted, as well as the administrative staff. So you can't have a CEO jump ship, abandon this company, and then walk across the road, and it's literally 50 meters away, and then purport to take on the mantle of being a chief operating officer. It goes against corporate governance, the Companies Act, and these individuals can be held personally liable.
Tony, thank you very, very much for speaking to us, and we certainly hope that we can catch up with you in the week. There's a lot of more questions that I actually had for you, but we are running out of time. We certainly would like to know what you would have done to fix the union. Well, Chumani, just to bring you in over here, the South African Rugby Players Association is supposed to be for the players, supposed to protect them. They certainly aren't doing their jobs. We asked them to comment. They said they cannot make any comment right now until the matter is all fixed. Is it going to be fixed anytime soon?
No, it certainly won't be fixed anytime soon, because I learned earlier on today that some of the players will intend on going to court. I know Michael van Furian has said that he's definitely going to court. So I mean, those legal processes will also take a very long time. I mean, it's a real shame that SAPA hasn't been able to do anything, you know, to protect and support the players outside of giving them food vouchers, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, who else are these players supposed to run to if they can't run to SAPA, who now seems to be sort of on the side of EP Rugby and Cheeky Watson. And
I hear that some players are also trying to get out of the Players Association because they feel that they are not getting any protection.
Absolutely. A huge number of the EP Kings players have decided that they don't feel protected enough, so they might as well just stand on their own and form their own little clique there and fight the battle on their own. And that is what they've already started doing, and it seems like it's probably the only way to do it. And from there, just go to court and take EP Rugby to court.
Chumani, very quickly, because we are running out of time, we can discuss this the whole day, but the one thing that the Kings was supposed to be here for is to help black players, especially in the Eastern Cape, find or come up to a professional level. In the Currie Cup, the Southern Kings or the EP Kings was a complete white team.
Cheeky Watson failed dismally in that regard. I mean, when he came in, I remember I was working in Port Elizabeth at the time, and his promise was that this will be a black team. And one of the first things he did when he came in, he came and imported players from overseas, from New Zealand, from the UK, I mean, paraded Mzwandile Steak, he was still a player back then, Paul Mbiozo, and after a short while, they even disappeared, you know. It's a real shame, and I think we need a holistic change at EP Rugby to see any progression. Otherwise, with Super Rugby coming, we definitely will not see those numbers of black players that we had hoped we'd see playing Super Rugby from the Eastern Cape. We need a total change, and it will take many, many years before we actually reach that.
I certainly think so. Thank you very much, Chumani, for that, and we'll look forward to what happens in the SARU's Congress tomorrow and see if they address the issue. Thank you once again.